Hello and welcome back to the Youngstown Click Be Connected podcast. I am excited to introduce you to my friend, Madison Orlando, who is, we met quite a while ago from a Harley event, right?
We did. Youngstown Harley Davidson.
Youngstown Harley Davidson. Yeah. And she was doing horse massage at the time. And she just has such a big heart. And I wanted to introduce, talking to her is so fascinating because she has studied the body and how it works and how it connects to the mind. And so we're just going to kind of get right into some things. But she also has like an incredibly moving personal story that has brought her to who she is today, which is just such a loving, caring person. And so I can't wait for you to kind of meet her and get to know her. But also there's some things, when she told me her story, I was so moved and I really wanted to share it because sometimes you don't realize what the person next to you is going through. And when you shared your story of being young and being raised by your grandmother, we'll get into all that. It really impacted me. It really moved me. So I am thankful, but I want to first tell you guys, before we get into that, I want to tell you where we're coming to you from. We are at Lib's Market. It's a little cafe here in Salem, right on State Street, and we are upstairs. So when you get your coffee, you could come up here and play chess. They have homemade teas. What kind of tea do you have there?
I have
Orange Blossom. Have you tried it?
It's delicious.
Oh, see?
And it's very, very refreshing.
Oh, okay. And with summertime approaching, that's perfect. Oh, to make a nice pitcher of iced tea. So they have their teas, they have coffee, and they have an amazing kitchen. So I had a flatbread.
I had the bean burger.
The bean burger. And then our cameraman, Joseph, had a wrap. So there's all kinds of options. It's just a really cool place.
And they cater too. If you have a party, you can call them ahead of time and they'll make some things up for your party.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the thing about Libs is it seems like a gathering spot. Every time you come in here, you see people that, like, I'm not even from Salem, and I see people that I know that you feel like, known. This and Cast Iron right down the street.
Oh, absolutely.
It's a very great,
wonderful people,
community pooling together spot, and I love
Leslie
it.
and Will.
So thank you, Ben, for letting us record the podcast here. And then
Thanks, Ben.
Just a quick shout out to OhioFlame.com. They are sponsors of the Youngstown Click Be Connected podcast from the beginning. They do custom fire pits, and with the summer approaching and all kinds of gatherings and stuff, you want to make your backyard in your fire pit the talk of the town.
Oh, I would love that. I'm going to have to get their number.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. They do. I mean, you could custom engrave it with your logo or horses or whatever you might want. And we always say nothing makes strangers into friends quite like a bonfire. Getting invited to a bonfire and then you leave. I have friends who start dating after one chance bonfire that we were all at, and then they started dating. So you just bonfires just bring people together.
It's so interesting. We were married at sunrise, my husband and I, on the beach at 5:30 in the morning, and we had a humongous bonfire.
No, you didn't.
We did, and everybody gathered, like you said, and it was beautiful and warm. And
yes, and you know what? Bonfires at Christmas events. It's everybody gathers around it for warmth, or the fall events at the maze, the corn maze. They have this huge thing, so people just kind of pull. I don't know. It's just weird. It's kind of
comforting.
It is comforting. Yes. Yeah. So if you want that, if you want a custom, and it's made right in Columbiana, right here, local people making custom fire pits. So thank you, Ohio Flame.
Thank you.
And of course, the Gallagher downtown, Airbnbs for your guests coming in from out of town. Beautiful, beautiful renovated 100-year-old building. So check that out. They're on Facebook, The Gallagher.
Oh, that's nice to know too. Thank you. You're a world of information.
Thank you. All right, now let's get started into who Madison Orlando is. So you tell us a little bit about who you are. You have a business here in town. Tell us a little bit about that. And then I want to get into a little bit of your personal story that you shared. You actually wrote a little bit about it. It was very personal, but it touched a lot of lives. And so I think that I would like to share that right off the bat, kind of getting started.
Okay. I do have a business here in Salem, and I'm so grateful for the community. They've embraced me so much. I have wonderful clients, and they've been very understanding with certain, times when you have to kind of switch things around and stuff. But it's a beautiful little studio in the Hofmeister building. And it's like a 200-year-old building, and so it's got great energy. Well, you've been there.
Yes, I didn't realize it was 200 years old. Man, they make things like crazy.
I know, they're
good
so
back
beautiful.
Then. Yes.
I know, the big wide staircases. And,
yeah.
The radiators. They're so beautiful.
And it's right there on the corner of
right
State
on the
Street
corner
and
across from Premier Bank.
Okay. Yes. Yes. Wow.
Yeah, next to the courtyard.
Okay.
And it's on the second floor, and I've been here since 2001, I think I opened. Yeah, I didn't open during COVID, of course. So, but I've been in the industry for over 24 years. And, I love doing body work, massage. I do Reiki as well and teach classes. And it's just wonderful. I just feel like it's just a beautiful exchange. I always say it's just as wonderful to give one as it is to get one for me.
I'm sure everybody's different. And people come in with such a load. I heard that JFK, before a big speech or a big day, he would, the whole day before, he would go get a massage and go swimming. So he would do everything he could to prepare. And then the day before, he'd get a massage. It was like his free, because what it does to the body.
Well, it's medicine.
So,
it is medicine.
Right?
Everyone, a lot of people think it's an indulgence. I think that's changing now a lot because it really does. It totally regulates you.
Yeah.
Lowers your blood pressure, your heart rate. It realigns everything. It feels really good, but it does so much more internally.
Wow. Our bodies are so incredible, and they do what they need to do to help us keep going. And our minds, when we go through something, it knows, hey, I have to shut this out so that we could continue to survive and you could continue to do this. And so there's pockets that our mind and body kind of hold on to that sometimes we become not aware of. I liken it to like opening a closet and you have friends coming over. So you push everything in that closet, and you could do that for a while. And then it starts to stink and you're like, okay, let me spray. And then you just keep pushing stuff in that closet. And one day that door breaks open, and people are like, what happened to them? They're bipolar. They're this. I really think that has a lot to do with undealt with trauma, undealt with experiences or thoughts or emotions that we've pushed into a closet, and all of a sudden it's too much and it comes open, and people are like, they were fine yesterday and now they're not. We got to medicate them. And I think that's a huge mistake. And so we're going to talk a little bit about sometimes like where your body holds certain things, unforgiveness and anger and hurt and all these different things, and kind of how it manifests in the body, which is fascinating to me. Fascinating. I wish I was a scientist sometimes.
It really is fascinating. And I think a lot of times we don't realize what people go through, like you said, and a lot of people appear like, they've got it all together and they're happy. And of course, yes, absolutely. But internally, they're really struggling. And, I'll just share a little story. My husband met someone in one of his meetings that he attends and things. And a lot of the people were like, wow, this guy's just really not nice. He's really mean and nasty. He's arrogant, or whatever those, words you would use. And normally, they like mostly everybody. But this person was really, really like a negative energy.
Wow.
And then he told his story, and everybody changed. He said that, he grew up with a mother that was, a really bad drug addict, and that people would come over and be with his mom. And he was like 3 or 4 or 5, and they would just shove him in another room or worse. And one day he just couldn't take anymore, and he set himself on fire. So, of course, thankfully he survived. I don't know if a neighbor called an ambulance or whatever. But he had so much, and no one would ever have thought. They just thought he was mean and nasty. And
now he's a grown man.
A grown man.
With all that. Mm-hmm. Oh, my
And
no
one knows. No one knows. And they keep all that out. And that's an extreme case, of course, which there are a lot of.
Yeah.
But just normal things, like just everybody trying to keep it together with, keeping up with everything.
Yeah.
Even just being a mom is
Yes.
biggest job in the world.
And the expectations that sometimes we put on ourselves or other people put on us without even knowing. I mean, we think that this is normal. I read an article, and I don't know, was it you that shared it? Somebody shared an article on Facebook, and it was about this lady was writing in first person, but it was a shared article, and she said that she ended up at the therapist, and she was just feeling so overwhelmed with life, and her therapist said, what is at the heart of you feeling overwhelmed? And she was like, and so then they rephrased it and said, when you go home and you open the front door, you walk in your house, what causes you the stress that feels overwhelmed? And she said, to be honest with you, I feel bad. I shouldn't feel like this. It's not any big problem, but the dishes and the sink, because I have a crappy dishwasher. It doesn't do dishes well. And so I have to wash everything by hand, and it stacks up. And she said that just for some reason makes her feel like a failure and just overwhelmed and behind behind. So the therapist said, run the dishwasher twice, load them up, run it twice. So she said she got home, she threw everything in hodgepodge. She just threw it in there and ran it 3 times, and she felt so empowered.
And it's as simple as that.
Then she said she took a shower sitting down, because she said gradually she regained, because she was like, I could do my own rules. I don't have to do things just because that's supposed to happen by anybody else's like normality. And she said, now I do the dishes and it's not overwhelming, but in that moment it was overwhelming. And so it really made me realize how many times we do things based on other people's expectations. I know that if my grass is like the highest on the street, and everybody, and the guy, there's one guy who cuts almost everybody's grass, but he doesn't cut mine because my yard's so weird. And plus I don't want to pay somebody weekly to cut it. But, so sometimes he's out there and he's cutting the grass, and I start feeling tense because I'm like, oh, I got to cut the grass. I can't, or whatever. And then I'm like, you know what? Who says? I mean, it's not like overgrown. It's not embarrassing, but like sometimes I feel that like I got to get out there and cut the grass. I can't have the highest grass on the street. Mm-hmm. And then I'm like, you know what? That's my own thing. Mm-hmm. And I'll cut the grass, and then I get out there in my bare feet and I cut the grass and enjoy it on my own time.
Right.
You know, that's a
not
little
doing
rambly,
it for
but
anybody else.
Right.
But that's what most people do.
Yeah.
Like they want to be accepted, loved, and appreciated. And a lot of the times they'll do things just because they don't want to be left out or different, and again, those are just learned behaviors.
Yeah.
We know everything already. We just have to unlearn.
Ooh.
We have to unlearn all of those
things
that are put on us.
Yeah.
And what we've allowed to be taken on, because we want to fit in or we want to feel this way or that way. And when you do it, that's what's really empowering. That's what really makes you feel safe.
Wow.
Not, doing everything that you think you should do when you don't want to do it, because that's not authentic.
Right. So we're going to get into a little bit about we were talking before the podcast, a little bit about where your body holds on to things, some of the organs that are affected through certain things that sometimes we unknowingly hold on to, or stories that we continue to tell ourselves, or experiences that we tend to relive. But before we get into that, let's talk a little bit about your personal story, because I really want them to understand kind of like who you are and where you come from. Sometimes we think that the person next to us doesn't have it as hard and maybe they don't. And thankfully, not all of us have to go through some crazy experiences. But tell us a little bit about you growing up. And I know, let's kind of start at the beginning. And I don't do this to everybody, but okay. I know it's a very powerful part of your story.
Yeah. I don't feel like, like people that heard it, they were like, oh my God, my heart aches for you and all that. But I actually never felt, I always felt held. I always powerful. Did. I don't know. I didn't know how I knew, and I didn't even know what, to call it or whatever, but I always felt like directed.
Wow.
And I didn't really have people around, but everybody would just show up once in a, somehow somebody.
It's the power of community and the power of being there. Sometimes so many people are like, what difference can I make in the world?
Well, not so much in my community. That's kind of the part where it was kind of hurtful to me.
Okay.
But I really thought they were just scared. And so was I. So I understood.
Yeah.
You know, because I believe that a lot of the times we can understand when it's in us, you know, or we don't like something that's in someone else because we don't really like it about ourselves.
Oh, that's true.
And we can recognize it in someone because it's in us. And it might already been healed and you've worked on it, but you can notice it in someone
and then you
else
have
and you can
compassion
help.
for others.
Exactly.
All right. So take us back to like you as a little girl.
Well, I was, my mother was in her 40s when she had me, which was late, 67 years ago.
Wow.
You know, that was late.
Yeah.
And she was fully pregnant with me in November, and my dad had a cerebral hemorrhage on the 4th of November, and I was born on the 8th. So 4 days before I was born, my father died when my mom was fully pregnant with me in her 40s. And I never met my dad. And my mom, she was a musical therapist, taught the blind Braille, traveled all over the world, like was a famous musician. Like I have clippings of her and everything, spoke 7 different languages.
Wow.
And after that, she just couldn't even feed herself. She just didn't speak. For 25 years, she just stared. So I never really knew my mom either, you know. And
she was a
brilliant, you know. So I was like, gosh, I would love to know. But, you know, I didn't know how to have a mom or a dad. I just, you know, I don't know. I would think it's probably harder when you have it and lose it.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure.
Right.
I don't know. I only know.
That was just your norm.
Yeah.
So she had you, and then she just kind of shut down.
Yeah. Just shut down.
And
she couldn't cope. I don't think 67 years ago they understood postpartum depression, premenopause, grief. They didn't know how to treat
all
it
at the same time.
all at the same time. You know.
Now, what was her community like? Was it? Was she like, you know, close to family? Did she have like a? I mean, because
No.
being that brilliant, she had to have been part of like an intellectual community, or
Well, she was an only child, and
Okay.
she did. She had wonderful, I think, famous people. I mean, she worked with Fred Astaire, Buddy Rich, Gene Krupa.
what?
Yeah.
Oh
I have,
my!
Yeah.
Now, where was this?
Well, I was born in Pittsburgh. So
okay.
I don't know where she traveled. She
Okay.
traveled everywhere. She
Okay.
worked with the USO, you know, everything.
Wow.
So, you know, she was
Incredible.
all over. But her mother, my grandmother, was an invalid. She couldn't walk. And again, back in those days, I don't think they understood rheumatoid arthritis or whatever she may have had. And all she really had was an Anacin. You probably don't even know what that is.
No.
But I guess back then it was kind of like a extra strength Tylenol. Like that was the only thing. And she could not straighten her legs. But the state, you know, I don't know if there was not much of a child welfare or whatever, they let her keep me. And she would just keep me in the playpen, and I put my arms around her, she'd pull me up, you know, and she raised me. So she couldn't walk. She would scoot around on the wheelchair and cook. But, you know, if I was outside and, you know, who knows, you know, she couldn't tell me or see me or do anything. And so our house was kind of, you know, run down. And, you know, she came from the finest things, like a beautiful, beautiful clothing and fabric, and my mom. And, you know, so we had my mom's baby grand piano and pictures of my mom in Paris and things. But the walls were like rain stained and no heat and overgrown grass and, you know, like you would say, you know, your yard. Yeah. And and we were using her fur coats, my mother's fur coats, to keep us warm because we had no heat.
Oh
and
my goodness!
pawning her instruments to eat.
So had they come from fine things because of your grandfather?
My mother, she was the musician.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So your mom brought all that.
Yeah, she had all that, but when she got sick, she didn't work anymore.
And then was she living with you guys, or did she go stay?
She was
in
at a
place?
hospital. Yeah,
She went to a hospital.
yeah, and we lived off my grandmother's Social Security. I guess I don't remember there being much, but
Wow.
But she was such an amazing woman. My grandmother. I mean, she had such good principles and values, and she'd say, "You're hanging around with those riffraff." don't you be hanging around, those kind of things. And,
Oh, my.
But she'd always say, I love you so much. She would, whisper in my ear, and she was great.
Oh, my goodness.
But
no heat in the house.
and it was dirty, and all those
Yeah.
things, and our clothes weren't washed and things, and people weren't allowed to come over because I was poor, dirty, and had no mother. So
Wow.
but everybody wanted to come over, so they'd sneak over because it was just a
Wow.
really kind of place where they could just
Yeah, kids generally don't care about those things.
yeah. But their parents didn't want them over there. So then my grandmother started to get really sick, and I was coming home one night and broke my leg on Christmas Eve. So the ambulance came and took me to the hospital, and I had the best Christmas ever because I had gifts. I had my hair brushed. I had a good dinner. And I just loved being, but you know what I'm saying? Like, so
Wow.
that was like my experience. And I knew that my grandmother tried so hard. She wanted so much, but she could only do what she could do from a bed. So that was that. And then she got sick, and then she got so sick, they had to go to a nursing home. And again, I was like 15. So at that time I had a boyfriend, and I did get pregnant at 15. I had my daughter at 16. And I was basically a child having a child.
Yeah.
I really didn't know anything. I had no reference point to relationship or parents or anything.
Wow.
And I was just really scared. I didn't want to, tell anyone. So I finally did have my daughter, and my grandmother, I finally told her, when, before I had her. And, we called the social services, Catholic social services, and they helped. They just, people would come and bring a bag of baby clothes or playpen and things like that.
Yeah.
And then my grandmother went to a nursing home, and then I just worked. I had 2 jobs. I waitressed mostly, and I worked at the hospital in the day and waitressed at night. And I didn't have a car till I was 30.
Oh, my.
So I would pick my daughter up, and again, I had a lady that watched her, a daycare, and she would stand in the corner and wait and grab my daughter so I didn't have to take another bus and be late for work. So everybody helped. It was just wonderful. And
Wow.
it was hard, and I was scared a lot of the times. You become very hyper vigilant when you are surviving.
Yes.
And your intuition becomes very sensitive and heightened because you're aware of everything, and you kind of just listen to guidance, I guess you would say. But,
Wow.
it worked out. My daughter grew up beautiful and became a NICU nurse and needle nail nurse.
Really? Oh, good. That's amazing.
Yeah.
It's not something that makes me want to cry, man.
Well, it's hard to tell it. It's better to read it, actually. It's easier. But, I always just wanted her to have what I didn't have, like a beautiful room and nice clothes and someone at her sports games or whatever it was.
Yeah.
But it was still hard for her because she didn't really have family and,
Of course.
and a dad really that wanted to be in the picture. And we were just kids,
Yeah.
that kind of thing.
Oh,
But
my
she married a
goodness.
wonderful man. He's a retired 9/11 fireman, 25 years
Really?
fireman. We have 3 beautiful grandchildren.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so
Oh, my goodness. Wow. Have you been to that, it's called Guns and Hoses Cafe in Newton Falls?
no.
Yeah. So they have one whole wall is dedicated to the police officers and another whole wall that's dedicated to the firemen. But there is a jacket that's hanging there or a sweatshirt, and it is from one of the 9/11 firemen that died, and their family wanted that
Wow.
because that's how much they honor, and the guy, the husband who owns it is a retired fireman. So, it's very close to them, but yeah, and it's good food too, but it's really
Yeah.
cool to see them honor the firemen and stuff. But yeah,
There were 30 funerals a day for firemen. It was really a major. I mean, everyone knows where they were when it happened.
of course,
So
wow. So she was he? So he was living in New York City at that time.
yeah, that my daughter and him were in New York.
She was married to him
yeah.
when. So what?
Yeah.
She was married
he
to
was
him
gone
when.
for like days and couldn't call or anything. We didn't know if he was okay and all
Oh,
that. But
my.
he made it out, and
Wow, that's a miracle.
yeah, it was a miracle. And He's a good guy. And
Has he? Okay, so now we talk about trauma and the trauma that we experienced, or people experience. Has he been able to process that through?
he doesn't talk much about it. Even, on the memorial of the 9/11, like he'll always be somewhere and, people want to talk to him. He doesn't say a lot about it.
Okay.
He it really did.
Yeah.
It was hard, but he's
good
a good guy, and he's so for firemen and policemen and everything. And,
Yeah.
but they moved afterwards when he retired after 25 years. They moved to New Jersey and opened ice cream store at the Jersey Shore.
No way.
So he fought
that's
fires
fun.
for 25 years, and now he employs high school kids and sells ice cream and makes everybody feel good. So that's it.
That's amazing.
It is.
Oh, I love it at the Jersey Shore.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
in the
beautiful.
summer. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, that's fun.
Polar
Wow.
bear ice cream.
Oh, okay. So if anybody goes to the Jersey Shore,
It's the best. I'm
Yes.
telling you, it is the best ice cream. He makes homemade banana.
What?
Pumpkin in the fall. They have gluten-free. They do
Oh, my
everything.
goodness.
It's soft
And tell
serve.
them that you heard his mother-in-law
It's soft serve.
Oh,
Polar
is it?
bear ice cream at the Jersey Shore.
at the Jersey Shore. Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Thank you.
Wow. Okay. So, all right. So you had your daughter, and then how did you get to this area, the Youngstown, Salem area?
So once my daughter, was married and stuff, that's when I kind of started really working on myself.
Okay.
I couldn't really, there was just too many. I was, like you said, going and working and trying to, make sure she was okay and I was okay and all those things. And, not really financially in a great place. But once she got good, that's when I kind of started searching really for anything that, because I just kept doing the same thing, getting the same results. Not really great relationships, not saying what I meant and meaning what I say, wanting to fit in, wanting to have a family, wanting to be part of somebody's family, those kind of things. And I realized that I had to find that in myself before I could really find it with someone else.
Wow.
And I had amazing, I was very lucky that I was able to work with Carolyn Mace, Anatomy of the Spirit, Tony Robbins, Personal Power,
Okay.
Wayne Dyer, The Power of Intention, Dr. Wayne Dyer. I mean, wonderful Reiki teachers that changed my life, and a wonderful priest that was from St. Patrick's.
Oh, really?
That was a wonderful mentor and kind man to
Okay.
me. And so
St. Patrick's in Youngstown?
New York.
Oh, in New York. Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Aw. Wow.
Yeah, so he was great. And
So, okay. So now let's fast forward to your husband now. Okay.
Then I
'Cause
met
he
my
has-
husband, yes.
Now he has his own journey, and he's been featured in
Yes.
some pretty famous books and stuff.
yeah, he's a person that does study groups for the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. He does have quite a story, and he is in Dr. Covey's book, Living the 7 Habits.
Okay.
And again, I met him once I was right with myself.
Wow.
Before that, I didn't meet anyone like that.
Wow.
And when I was ready, I did meet him, and we were married like in 3 months, and now it's 23 years. So
What? You
It's
got
good.
married in 3 months from
Yeah.
meeting him. How did you meet him?
I met his friend, and his friend, my bosses live next door to her, and he said, "You have to meet my friend Tom." And I was like, "Oh, I'm good, No,
Right,
I didn't
right. You
want-"
just-
He said, "Oh my God, you have to." And then he saw him, and he said, "Oh, you got to meet this girl. I met her the other day." And Tom was like,
Oh my.
"No."
Yeah.
And then I stopped over my boss's house another time, and he was there, and we met, and that was it.
And that
we
was
just
it.
started talking, and everything was like we were so on the same page. And he'd done a lot of work on himself. He was divorced, and I had done a lot of work on myself, and we were just right.
Wow. It was the right time.
And he just the way his examples, I believe, made me just love myself more. Because he never said, "Oh, you need to do this, you need to do that, or you should change
Yeah.
this." He never did. He worked on, he carried himself a certain way. And I was like, gosh, he's so forgiving of himself. And he doesn't beat himself up when he makes a mistake. And you know, he really, he just had a wonderful way of surrendering and accepting and, you know, being God's.
You know, it's so interesting that these principles, you could see them play out, the importance of forgiveness towards yourself and allowing yourself to be forgiven by God, to forgive other people, right? If you're holding on to these things, you become emotionally constipated and you can't function how you're supposed to function. But it's interesting because what you talked about is like forgiving yourself or letting yourself make mistakes or like getting past them. I think that that's something that so many people don't know how to do. And for whatever reason, in fact, a friend of mine who is a therapist, but she specializes in sex addiction, she said something very alarming. And I thought, like, it just hit me. She said that boys or men who grew up in an environment where their mistakes were counted against them as part of their identity. So instead of like, hey, okay, like let's just say they break a window. Okay. So instead of saying, okay, well, how are we going to fix this? How are we going to make it right? You're going to work summer jobs. We're going to pay the man back, that type of thing. And really helping him make that right. Or, hey, you need to apologize to your sister, or whatever it may be. If they don't grow up in that kind of environment and they grow up in the environment of, what's wrong with you? You're such a failure. You're an embarrassment. You're always causing problems. And their mistake becomes part of their identity. High 90s. I want to say like 98% chance. There's a high 90 something percent. I don't want to misquote as a fact, but it's high 90s% chance that boy will at some point experience a struggle with sex addiction or a sex, like either porn or any kind of like struggle with that, because
that's where their gratification comes.
I guess it's part of that, like that relief. It's probably one of the strongest reliefs from that constant pressure of feeling like a failure, of feeling, and then when that becomes the relief, people go to where they feel gratified. And so it becomes a thing. And as she helps work through people, she said, it's amazing to see how many people will say, I didn't know that life was possible like this. I didn't know that this was even possible to live life without these confines that had been created because of a shame-based environment. And it's so sad because so many people grow up in that and they think, well, I'm just teaching them to never do that again. But really, it's not. We need to be taught, and kids need to be taught how to get past their mistakes, how to fix mistakes, how to grow from mistakes, not to be shamed into putting that label on them for the rest of their life.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
And shame and guilt are very different. You know, guilt is I made a mistake. Right. And shame is I am a mistake.
Ooh, that's
You know, so they do feel that way.
Yeah. All right. So tell us a little bit about. So you got into the massage and helping people kind of like release that, but you also massaged animals.
Yes, equine massage and dogs too, and house blessings and.
Okay.
I don't know. I went to a martial arts school, Northern Shaolin Kung Fu.
Wait, you took Kung Fu?
Yeah.
No way.
Way before I was a massage.
Okay.
I became a national champion. And I traveled a little bit.
Everybody was Kung Fu fighting.
And it was another amazing experience in my life.
You don't know who you're sitting next to. I'm sitting next to a Kung Fu champion. What in the world?
Yeah, and my best friend and instructor was Cynthia Rothrock, who is the only woman who is in the Martial Arts Hall of Fame.
What?
So
and you got to train with her?
Well, I trained with her for
in Pittsburgh?
7 years. No, in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And she begged me to come to California with her. That's where she lives now. But at that time, I had my daughter, and I just, I don't know. I didn't feel safe traveling to California and leaving all that and the familiarity that I knew, so I didn't. But what I did realize was when I got into massage, I was doing Kung Fu. Because I was just doing
so Kung
something
Fu is
different.
kind of like Feng Shui. No, not Feng Shui. What's that where they do the...
It's very
What do the old
It's like
people
a
do in the
dangerous
park?
ballet. Tai Chi.
Tai Chi.
Yeah. Well,
Where
that's
it's like
another
pushing-
that's another spiritual practice of Tai Chi and energy work. And when you're moving lymph in the body, or you're moving blood and oxygen, and you're speeding up circulation, and you're
Okay.
releasing tension,
That's
you're
what they're
moving
doing
energy
with Tai Chi. So
Yes.
Kung Fu is like the another form of that.
I know people always say, "My gosh, you're so little. How could you do deep dish? Or you're 67?" But when you do a martial art, you learn how to use your body mechanics and not come from yourself and deplete yourself, but come through yourself. Like you learn how to ground yourself and bring your energy like through you.
Wow.
So that helps me in my work.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
And it's beautiful because it's the same thing. It's just it's just a different way of showing it.
Something. So this is fascinating to me is how, I did a speech one time called, it was basically talking about how the most powerful forces in the whole universe are the unseen forces, right? Oxygen, we'd be dead without it.
Right.
Unseen, wind, the ultimate creator, God. We can't see him with our physical eyes right now.
And
so
energy.
much, and energy,
Like,
thoughts,
that's what people-
thoughts. You
thoughts
can't
are
see
energy.
thoughts, right? Well, and so emotions. We make so many decisions with emotion, but you can't see emotions. So so let's talk a little bit about the body and how it reacts to trauma, to positive energy, to some of the things that you've seen. You said that sometimes people come to get a massage and they're just so like tense and clammed up. And so then you're able to
Yeah, sometimes the energy body is so closed off and so armored up from pain or trauma or just protection of their self that they really can't feel. They can't feel like you could go harder and harder. You could stand on them and it wouldn't be deep enough,
Wow.
And it doesn't necessarily have to be painful to be effective. But for them, it's something that they could at least feel because energetically, they've become numb about it,
Wow.
about whatever it is. Not that they're not functioning and acting nice. It's just their way of being
So they're walking
protected.
around to a certain point, numb.
Energetically,
Wow.
I would say. And
But
then when it
but-
starts to unwind, even when they just maybe express some of their discomforts, I usually leave a lot of time for people to decompress. That's most of the letting go, is just allowing them to tell the truth that they don't really tell to other people and just kind of release it. And then by the time they get on the table, my work is mostly good.
Right.
It's so
You're
easy.
just working it out of their organs and out of their lymph
and helping
system.
them realign, assisting them because they're really doing the healing. I'm just being a helpful, companion to create conditions for health. Because when you help others realign and you help people release and relax and trust, they make better choices. They sleep better. They eat better. They're not reactive. They think differently. They think differently. They don't think so much negative thoughts because they're getting the right amount of nutrients and oxygen, blood and fluids and things. And it takes time to unwind those things, of course. And patterns are so, that loop. But when you can create a different loop, it's kind of like a big mountain of mud, and say there's like a ripple and the storm comes and it gets in that rivet and it gets in that rivet.
Yeah.
And every time it rains, it takes the path of least resistance in that rivet. The same with a pattern, so when you need to create a different rivet of goodness and positiveness and that you're great and you're perfect just the way you are.
Yeah.
You don't have to do anything but be who you are,
Right. So I got one of your massages quite a while ago when you first opened. So man, it's hard to believe it's a couple years ago.
know. 3. Actually,
But
I think,
it felt so like, I told her earlier, like you could go and pay to get a massage and you get a massage, right? You get what you pay for. But with her, there's like such love and it's strong, but gentle. And just you know what I'm saying? Just to being able to, so talk to us a little bit about some of the things that you have seen, like what happens to the body? I know terms like lactic acid and tension and stuff like that. What happens to the body when people are holding on to, let's just say, unforgiveness? Or have you seen people be able to process those things out? Like, talk to us about the link between some of these things. Like, what happens in the body if somebody holds on to unforgiveness? We'll just say that because that's common.
Yeah, I think emotions. If you're thinking negatively for a long time, or you're angry or bitter or rigid, about things, and you don't want to change because you're scared, because that's your way of being. That's the way not
So
judging
it's like
it.
based in fear.
Yes. Sometimes after a long period of time, like rigidness would be like arthritis at a very young age, would be joints that are, painful, feet that, maybe, you have issues with.
Wow.
Those kind of things, sometimes when it's unforgiveness and, it doesn't matter how much organic food you eat or how much cosmetic work you would get, say, woman or man, if your heart is bitter, it doesn't express that joy. It doesn't shine like that. What people want to be attracted and be around you and feel that, wow, there's comfort and it's just because it's just not real.
Yeah.
And there's something, it lands differently. It's unauthentic. And the bitterness, heart conditions, lungs, all kinds of things after a very long period of time because, I believe everything starts on an emotional component. Before it shows up physically. It's been going on a long time.
Wow.
And, liver, anger, usually.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well, the liver, filters the blood and that kind of thing. And
wow.
So, when you have anger, I would think long term.
Yeah.
Of course, emotions are absolutely important. We should get angry. We should be sad. We should be happy. We should laugh. We should, they're all important. We have them for a reason.
But it's supposed to filter out like the liver filters out the blood?
Well, and process it and work through it. Don't let it go. Let it come through and feel it. Absolutely. Because, that's normal.
Right.
But to carry it for years is very detrimental to yourself. And not only that, it's just so unproductive for you, and you never really can reach your full potential.
Wow.
Because you're holding on to something that is not serving you anymore. Like they talk about somebody being a witness to your pain, and I always say, let them talk to you about it 3 times.
Okay.
And listen. Don't tell them anything. Don't give them any advice. Just let them express it. But after that, be a holy witness and tell them the truth. Like, okay, so now what? Are you going to let this control you the rest of your life? Like, this person that was mean to you or divorced you or cheated on you or whatever it could be.
Yeah.
And you're not condoning any of that. But it's not hurting them to be this way. And yes, it's painful. Yes, it's disappointing. Yes, it's all of that. But the best thing you could do is, for me, I just think, I was being protective. I dodged a bullet. It was great that those things, and that made me become who I am and meet the person that was right for me, It's hard to say it like so quickly and not
it's
to really express it. But
there's people who they say their pain and then they wear it like a badge.
It's
right?
the story.
Because it keeps them from being unseen and unheard. Mm-hmm. If I have a story and I have something that I know will affect people, I'll keep telling it. But then there's people who hide their pain and you never know what they're going through. And those are the people that need to just, and there's a certain vulnerability with getting a massage.
It's a
And
very
there's also
personal service. Yep.
a vulnerability with releasing pain and trauma.
Getting emotional.
There was something that happened when I was 16 that I did not realize was affecting like my whole life. And I'm not saying like it was like, like I didn't even think about it, but it affected it. It formed a core belief.
Do you care to share it?
Maybe another time.
Okay.
But I mean, like nothing like, it was nothing like, compared to a lot of people, it was not, it would have been like, okay, just another day. But for me, it was extremely hurtful, but I didn't talk about it. I didn't show that it bothered me. I kind of, like I refused to be a victim. Or I'm going to say I refused to acknowledge. So I just was like, I'm not going to, whatever. And I didn't deal with it. And it took like years later, God brought that back up and said, unless you deal with this, you can't heal from it. But otherwise, I didn't even realize how it had integrated into a formation of things that I said, decisions I made, based on that one experience. And so it's interesting how sometimes people hide it and you're not even aware that that's become a part of like what you think about guys, what you think about girls, what you think about jobs, what you think about yourself, what you think about the future, what you think about the country, all these different decisions and things that people just spout out and they don't really go back to say, why do I think like that?
Yes, absolutely. And I also think that when for me, the things that I've learned and come through and gone through, and the work I do, when someone is doing those things, you recognize it. You can see it.
Yeah.
Somebody maybe to the common eye that doesn't do this work, maybe does different work, might not recognize it, but that's the whole thing of it. That's what's so important about this work is that because people are afraid, they don't feel safe to share that. And when someone can come into the studio, like for me, and I can just go, well, wait a minute, tell me what really is going on. Because, that doesn't seem, like you, I don't feel like you're, and I'm not a therapist by any means.
Right.
I'm just a place I believe that people can share and feel safe. And
where do you get that by accident? Hey, how are you? How's it going? Oh, good, good. Or anywhere. I mean, even a church you could go up to, hey, good to see you, give a hug. That's not the place to be like, hey, or it's not a place that's normally like that. So to offer that kind of place is so powerful. Where
I think it's needed,
it
especially
so
now.
needed.
People
I'm not saying it doesn't happen in churches. It's just we get so used to just being,
because they're hiding, because there's so much unconnection right now, and so much connection. That's the whole thing. And the thing of it is, we are not that fragile. We're not that fragile that somebody could say something and it could wreck our day. Like, you can't get wet from the word water. It's a word. And unless you believe some part of it is true, just throw back the hot potato. Like, it's just not, like, listen, honey, this isn't about me. What's going on? Why would you say that to me? And communicate. But so many people don't communicate. They don't say, wow, this doesn't sound like you. You must be having a really hard day or going through something because this isn't you. I've known you. But right away, like you say, oh, she needs medication or she needs, and maybe she's just struggling.
I know.
Or he.
I know.
Maybe.
I know. I agree. I think we get lazy and we don't want to deal with what somebody else is going through, or we don't want to acknowledge our part to play in it sometimes if we're close to them.
That's absolutely true.
So then it's easier to be like, oh, it's their issue. It's genetic. It's psychological. Oh, they have an imbalance. When really sometimes all it takes is saying, hey, I'm sorry that I've been so hurtful to you.
Yeah, that's it. And it's over. Like, it doesn't take years or hours. If you just say, wow, I'm really sorry that I hurt you or I made you feel that way. That wasn't my intention.
Right.
And then it's gone. Then somebody feels heard. They feel seen. They feel loved.
Yes.
That's it.
I know.
It's not that hard. And it's not that complicated.
I know. I know. Yeah.
Text messages now. Lives blow up with texting and you can't see the emotion. You can't understand it. And nobody can pick up the phone and just say, wow, this seems like we should have a conversation.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where it's a gift and a curse with all this communicating without doing this.
Yeah.
Or this. That's
Yeah.
why the work you do is so wonderful, because
Oh.
you're sharing everybody and their
Thank you.
businesses and promoting people and sharing wonderful places to be. And
Oh, thank you.
yeah,
That means
no,
so
but
much.
you
Thank
know
you.
that when I say, like, God, spirit, whatever you want to call it, it works through you. And it's so needed right now. And it's
It is.
it's so, like being enveloped, like I said to you, people come sometimes and they go, oh, I feel so cared for when I'm here, and I believe that, they're feeling God's embrace or spirit's embrace or
yeah.
whatever you want. Because when you're just being a person of holding space for someone so that they can feel and get a deposit, because most
Yeah.
of them are giving so much.
That's
Sometimes,
true. Yeah.
like you said, just doing it because they feel they have to. They don't even
Yes.
want to.
Yes. Yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
going and going and going because they don't want to not
They've
be liked.
lost track to any kind of meaning why they do it. Yeah. That's all right. So talk to us a little bit about a few more of these. You mentioned, this is fascinating to me, the pancreas. The pancreas is connected to what kind of like emotional?
I would
Let's see.
say, prostate.
Okay.
Prostate, and that would be more down
Got it.
with,
Okay.
like, again, sometimes it really is just a cigar. It's not
Right, of
about that, but
course.
sometimes it is trauma, low self-esteem, low self-worth, no boundaries, like for years, violation, those kind of things, breast guilt, that's all
Wow.
second energy.
And you mentioned the gallbladder sometimes is connected to.
Well, gallbladder is, I would be liver, gallbladder, spleen would be like third, upper GI,
Okay.
not lower GI, but,
Okay.
that's in meridian work, I believe, is like, balance and decisions. And again,
Okay.
I'm not an acupuncturist, so
Right.
but from
It's
just
just
different
interesting.
things that when you can sense it on a body,
Yeah.
because it's not like woo woo. It's that the
Right.
the organs,
Where
the
we tend
tendons,
to-
the muscles, the anatomy, the
Interesting.
pathology.
So what about reflexology? Are there really like pressure points in
Absolutely.
the feet? Yeah.
Absolutely. Like there are so many energy centers just on your tips of your fingers. Like that's why when they do like yoga and they do the Om, you are absolutely touching meridians, and the Om chant, has a vibration. Just like
okay.
the cross has a vibration. When you see it, there's a reverence about it. What happened and things like that. Or say, when people wear like a St. Michael medal or
Okay.
something, there's a vibration. When you see Nike,
Yeah.
there's a vibration.
That
symbols are
fascinates me. I talk about this all the time with people. It's fascinating. Like if you study any one part, like let's just say I studied plants, it would be easy to be so impressed by the plants that I could start worshiping the plants. I start studying the moon and the stars and the sun, and I'm like, oh, it's the universe. The universe is God. And then I look at the human body and just how incredibly complex. Do you know, of all the things that they have found, of all the things that we've discovered, the most complex that they have found, I mean, in the universe, all this stuff, the most complex is the human brain. So it would be easy to look at us and be like, oh, no, okay, we're God, right? We are the ultimate. And then you look at, like the molecular vibrations and stuff, and you're like, oh, no, but it's interesting because I believe it was all created by the same creator to work in harmony with each other. And so it's amazing how like the vibrations, my sister was just telling me about the vibrations when you talk positive to something as opposed to when you talk negative to it. It changes the vibrations. It changes the pattern. And it changes. It's crazy.
And they have science behind it, like the molecules of water.
Yes, that's what she was telling me.
And it's so true. And that's what Reiki is about too. Your body believes everything you say. And when you do say kind things to it and loving things to it and thank it and do all those things. And like you say, when something like that happens with plants and stuff,
Yeah.
for me, mine is always like, oh, thank you, God. Oh, look at that rainbow or
Isn't
whatever.
that beautiful? Yeah, the rainbow. That's
The
another thing. It's
most
just
beautiful
so beautiful.
architect is
Yeah.
God. You know, to me,
Right.
that's,
Yes.
you know,
Yeah.
and I wouldn't say I'm a religious person, but I am very spiritual, and I do believe in God and something higher than myself. Because I mean, just think of your eye. Like, just think of you know, the power of your eyes, like the things you don't even know you see.
You're right.
Your peripheral visions and things, and that become into your subconscious, and then all of a sudden you know them, and you're like, how do I know this? You
You're
know,
right.
but so many, your heart, what it does 24 hours a day, and you never rust, and you know,
You're right.
just thanking your hands, like the strength and just the power of love or touch,
Right.
or
how we react to that.
yeah. Do you
Incredible.
know that, you know, you can watch someone do an act of compassion and your hormones, you know, you'll get those.
Yeah, you're right. You feel
your,
good.
Your
like
endorphins. Your endorphins. You don't even have to do it. You just have to watch it.
Incredible. Incredible. So that makes sense, because whatsoever is pure, lovely, of good report, think on these things. You're right. So imagine we didn't fill ourselves so far up with crime dramas.
You know, it's so funny. I don't know what it is about them, though.
Because I think it's because there's justice in the end.
There's justice.
There's
Exactly. Because
justice
I
in the
can't watch the ones where there's not.
No, where it's
but
just
when
like,
when they're doing it for
right.
like the
Then
right
you
reason,
feel like they
I feel
solve
it,
it,
too.
and
I
there's
do.
yeah.
I know.
I
and
think
again,
that's what it is.
we are everything. Like when you talk about like, you know, you could be God or whatever, you know, in the Bible, like you say, like Jesus said, whatever I can do, you can do, and more. And if you believe you are God's child because you were created by Spirit, well, energetically, you know, if you took a teaspoon of water out of the ocean, you'd still be the ocean. You know, so if you're God's child, you do have godlike qualities. You are.
Well,
you
and
are.
Not because anything that we have done. I think that
No.
I think that's where
His
you
gift.
see people who are narcissists, and they're so focused on me and how I feel and my affirmations that they become unattractively self-centered and very hard to be around. So full of themselves. And I understand, even in that, they're trying their best to find an identity. But when you look at your own belly button for an identity, it's still empty. I think that when we realize that by God's gift,
we are who we are,
right?
And we're here to serve.
And we are made in His image, in
your purpose,
in my right. So, like, that's what I believe, is that He lovingly, you know, like, none of us got here without parents. Right.
Oh,
None of us got here.
absolutely.
Nobody just
Nobody
can
does
say,
it by themselves.
I claim
No.
credit for my own existence. And so I think
Excuse me.
that's the thing, is even as we live and move and breathe, we're doing it as a reflection of our Creator. And I know that you call it spirit and these different things, but the fact of the matter is, we are fascinating, and there's so much more than meets the eye. And these things about forgiveness and love. I mean, there's a passage, I'm sure you guys have heard it at a wedding at least, that even if all these other things pass away, it's love. Without love, charity is the greatest of them all. And so the thing is like, life was meant to begin. And see, now I love talking to you, because now it like stirs, but life was meant to begin and end in love and joy, right? As a baby, that baby didn't have to do anything to be loved. He's just loved because he exists. And then at the end of your life, the way that we all picture us wanting to go would be somebody happy that we were here, somebody who loved the fact that we were here. And so sometimes in the middle, we forget. And we think that we have to prove our worth, or we have to prove or earn our existence, or we're not important enough to get a massage.
Yeah,
you know what
that's
I'm
true.
saying? Like,
People
how
feel
many
like it's an
times?
indulgence
Yeah.
or something, and it's not. It is absolutely medicine. But what I have learned is, the only one I really want to feel like, wow, is God. Like, wow, you're doing a good job. Like, I'm not worried, like, if this person thinks I am or this person.
Yeah.
I'm just listening to the wisdom that I feel that comes through. Because, like we said, when I talked to him, I'm like, hey, I'm up for something really miraculous
I
today.
love
Like,
it.
come on.
I love
or
that.
something's happening. And you're like, come on, you can do it. Like, we can have conversations
Yes.
with our Creator.
Yes.
And like you said, have the faith when some things don't look like you think they should, because you've asked and you've said, well, you said this and you said that. Like, when you can get to a place where you know that something's being done for you and not to you. And when you, even if it's so whatever, like, I mean, look at the woman who is mother for drunk drivers.
Yes.
She took that. She could have, like, just
You're
drank
right.
herself to death or like hated her life, whatever.
You're
But she
right.
took that cause up for her son and made, a mission
You're right.
for, whatever it could be. And not everyone has that ability to, maybe do something like that. But we all have everything. We all have that yin and yang in us, the good and evil. We do, because we can access it. When someone's treating, say, maybe your dog terrible or something, you can access it if you want. But you know what we do? We choose not to. It's not that we don't have it.
You're right. We do have a
we
choice.
We choose to have those good thoughts and loving thoughts. And we can choose to say, you know what? I wonder what this is about, because that was kind of a really nasty thing that they just said to me.
Right.
What is this all about? Is it something that I feel I should look at, or is there something going on with them or whatever? But we all seem to react like, well, don't you talk to me like that or whatever.
Right.
And really, when you get to a place where you know that you're here and you're working on your purpose and you're being guided by the highest love, those things, they just don't matter.
You're right.
They don't matter. They're like you don't even, you just keep moving and you're happy.
You're right. So everything comes down to love.
Yeah, it just comes down to love and self-love. Because again, if you don't love yourself,
you can't love others.
You can't, and no one could love you, because it would never be enough. You would be, you're like bottomless. You just want more and more and more, and they can never please you enough, because you have to love yourself first.
Yeah, you're
and
right.
if that's a massage because you're important and you need to really have some self-care, or maybe even a moment without looking at the dishes. Or whatever, just to take some time for yourself so that you don't call in those negative thoughts and negative patterns that can become conscious if they're left too long. You can become sick, and I mean, there's so many allergies today. There's so many, reactions to so many things. And
do you think that's emotional?
I think it can be.
Yeah.
I think it can also be environmental, because there's a lot of chemicals and things like that. And even the cell phone things. I mean, we have these things to our ears like all day long, or the looking at the screen and all those things. There's so much different, but just think how much your body adapts to that.
I know. Incredible.
Like when you talk about the earth and how we don't go barefoot.
Yeah.
And just those, the energy of the earth, that we're connecting to.
We forget.
It matters.
You're right. And
you
then
get
we
around
connect
trees.
to electronics, which is not necessarily on our same, because aren't we our heart is electrical, right?
Absolutely. Your energy, like just think of, when lightning strikes and it hits the earth, it grounds.
Yeah.
But if it hits water, what does it do? So energy moves with water, and we're 78% water. So when you're using, if that makes sense. But
yeah, it totally does. Totally does. In fact, I read man, I could keep talking. I'm like, we're like,
I know you're probably going over.
No.
So.
And I still have to ask you our last question, but okay, real quick before I get off on another tangent, because this fascinates me, but let's get back to if somebody wants to book with you or they're interested in getting a massage or like kind of learning from you, how do they go about that?
Yeah. Right now, the thing that's really developing are the Reiki classes. Like, there's such a wonderful response to them, and
Okay.
I've been holding them at the studio next door to my studio.
Okay.
And they're so healing, because the first level is all about your physical and your mental, emotional, to help you unlearn.
Okay.
And for you to like do some of the things that we were just talking about. Then if you want to use it on your food, like just saying grace, basically,
Yes.
or
Right.
on your animals or your plants,
That's another unseen thing. I'm telling you, words and prayers. I mean, those, sometimes people make fun of people who say grace before their meal, or they're like, "Ugh," roll their eyes or whatever. But I mean, and
it's
again,
so powerful.
it is.
It's gratitude.
It is. And you know what? I'm telling you that there's a verse in the Bible that I don't really hear anybody really talking about, but it says that what you eat is sanctified by thanksgiving and the word, right? So here, when people give thanks, they're actually
Transforming.
doing something. Yes,
I believe it. I believe it. Like,
That's
thank you for, and
fascinating.
whoever picked this food, whoever grew this, whoever
Yes.
died to nourish me, whatever. Thank you.
Right. And people think that's like fruit, like, oh no, that's weird. But it's right there. So yeah, I sometimes it's easy for me to just dig in, and I have to remember, like, man, it takes 10 seconds
10
to say
seconds.
thank you, God.
Yeah.
Yeah. Or thank you for
Yes.
anybody who made it possible.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? I remember being in New York City. I keep getting on tangents with you, but I remember living in New York City, and I will never forget. I was walking up. It would have been like 3rd Avenue, and there was a Burger King, and I saw somebody eating a Whopper. Now, I grew up, my grandpa used to treat us to Whoppers, and that was our treat because we were poor, and so he would be the ones that always treat us. So when I saw them eating this Whopper, I was like, oh, that looks so good. I want a Whopper. So I checked out the price, and it was $6 and something, and I did not have an extra $6. And I will never forget that. So when I eat a good hamburger, my brain goes back to that moment when I didn't have money to buy a hamburger. And so I feel that gratefulness from the bottom of my heart that, that I have money to eat this hamburger. It's not just like, oh, I'm hungry, let me eat a hamburger. It's like, oh, you know what I mean? Because I remember that exact moment that I saw them eat a hamburger.
And those are, like you said, memories that you have from, like when you had a different circumstance.
Right.
But then look what you did with it. You created, this responsible life for yourself where you can self-sustain and lift people up, but it also lifts you up, and the gratitude that you have. And, like you were talking about the grass, like for me, having, a clean home and a home that looks clean around is so like triggering for me if it's not, because of what it was for me as a child.
Isn't that something?
But I know it. It's not like I don't know it.
Right.
I just go, oh, like when I start to go, oh, we can't leave that outside, that, and then I go, oh, that's because I always was so ashamed of not having,
Yeah, you're right.
And they run deep and they run long, and they're okay as long as you recognize it and you don't.
Creates an environment that you actually like, which is, it's a positive because you have a clean house. But then it could be a negative if you're like so fearful of what everybody thinks.
Yeah. No.
Yeah, I would not describe you as neurotic, but yeah.
But yeah, the Reiki classes are so powerful, and they're really wonderful because, like you said, like when you learn this gift and the principles, and that's what they basically are. They're values and principles. They're not laws. They're not a religion. They're just a practice of like, just for today, I won't be angry. Just for today, I will be kind to every living thing. And just for today, I will do my work honestly, meaning show up authentically.
Okay.
Not
honest.
trying to do something that you're not, or pretend something you're not, or imposter or whatever, but to just, and
to be okay.
And to be okay
how
with
you
it.
show
Exactly.
up. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
Okay, and then what about the massage part? Are you booked up? I know that you probably get booked up pretty quick.
I am pretty much, but sometimes people have cancellations because, people go away, they
Yeah.
have graduations, weddings,
Yep.
they go for winter to, things like that. But, so sometimes, I can,
Fit
help
somebody in.
someone.
So call anyway, and then maybe get on a list or something.
Yeah.
Is that the best way?
Yes. And if they want to take a class, they can do the same thing. They can reach me on Madison Massage Alchemist. They can message me on Facebook.
Okay. Madison Massage Alchemist.
Yeah.
On Facebook
Yes.
and Instagram?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Madison Massage Alchemist. I'm telling you, I don't know about the classes, but laying there and getting massage
Thank you.
is wonderful. So that's, I
Yeah.
can truly say,
Well, I always say
sometimes
that
that's just, what you need is just to lay there and let somebody else do the work.
well, for me, it's a place where you're not just pampered, you're cared for. That's how I
that's
feel.
Good.
And
So many people, that's right. They're like, oh, come let us pamper you. But wow, that's a big difference.
And
Being
that
cared for.
yeah, and that that everybody's different. It's not textbook routine.
Right.
You kind of everybody has a different pressure. Everybody has a different need.
Yeah.
And to honor that.
Yeah.
It's about them because this work, it can be very lucrative, but it's not about the money. You can't get in this work for the money.
No.
The money comes if you're in it for service.
Right.
But it's much more reverent than that.
Yeah. Well, I remember coming and feeling very, I hate to use the word insecure, but very self-conscious, And by the time I left, I just felt totally relaxed and loved and I just cared for. You know what I mean? But I will never forget feeling very self-conscious when I
It's
first
funny.
came.
People say that too, especially people that haven't had one or honestly, I'm not even thinking about that. I'm thinking about your
It's
ligaments.
very clear.
And people go, I didn't shave my legs. And I'm like, oh my God, I didn't even notice until you said it because I don't. Or if they didn't have a pedicure. I can't even, I don't even look at that.
Right.
I'm really not.
That shows. It shows because whoever is there, the love that you have for them and for the work you do is very evident. So if you have a chance to get on her list and to get it in there to get a massage, I would definitely highly recommend it. And just to get to know Madison, she is, she just has so much heart and so much love. And I mentioned that she had mentioned for a while she did equine massage because she just loved and cared for the animals. I remember her saying that she's, first time she saw a horse drool.
When you're doing it,
when they're like, oh.
Well, you know what the difference is too about animals, which is amazing. When you're doing energy like Reiki or even that, they know when they're done. Oh. They walk away. Like if you're holding a pet or something, like they're done.
Yeah, you're right.
But humans, it's different. They tend to think until they get unwound that they need more, but they don't realize that they're doing the stuff that's helping them. They think they need you, but when you help them, they start to realize that the choices they're making or the lifestyle they have or whatever, and they start to change. It's just beautiful to watch, just like it is when you see the animals. And the reason that I got into that was, there's this wonderful ranch in Salineville, DLR Mustang Ranch, that helps veterans.
Yes, they're amazing.
Yeah, and Harley Davidson, really took up that cause for me. The owners of the stores, John Allen and Bruce Miner, like amazing people. They do so much work, the Harley riders. When you see them, they are helping women with breast cancer, children with brain cancer, animals, veterans, homes for heroes. I mean, multiple. Like they are such giving people.
Wow,
it's amazing. Harley Davidson is a great environment.
Yeah, that's amazing. Yeah, and just to shout out DLR Mustang Ranch for kids and veterans, they pair them with wild Mustangs and teach them how to help the Mustangs who are scared and frightened. They've been rounded up usually from out west to prevent overfeeding and stuff, and then they're sent to farms and ranches to help take care of them. And they've never been touched by human hands, never been loved, don't know what's going on. and to see them pair the veterans and the kids with these horses and to watch them both kind of heal. It's a very healing place, that the DLM Racing Ranch is.
It's
even being
amazing
out there
to
for an
watch.
afternoon is just, it's beautiful.
And sometimes it takes months, to get them to trust each other, the veteran and the horse. But once they let go, both of them, like the veteran has a renewed purpose when he's been through so much trauma, and the horse doesn't feel like he's been captured. He feels freer, and he has a purpose now too.
Aww. You're right.
It's free. It's a free
so
program.
Beautiful. Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Okay, so that kind of leads us right into our last and final question. And thank you guys for sticking around. I know it's been a little bit longer. Yes.
Sorry.
But I hope that don't be sorry. And listen, my tangents don't help. But I think that the information that you've shared about, especially, it's fascinating how our body holds on to things and the different organs, and how, I mean, we haven't even talked about the breath work and the trauma that sometimes people hold, and they can't talk from the diaphragm. They talk from up here. I have a friend who's a vocal coach. He talks about that. So our bodies are just fascinating. And I
they're
just
not
think
breathing. They're rushing.
Yes.
And when you're like that, all these muscles get so tight because you're not breathing. You're not taking in a deep breath. That's why a lot of people smoke too. Because even though they smoke, but they take in oxygen. Isn't that interesting?
My goodness.
I mean, not that cigarettes don't have, they have a lot of drugs.
Right.
But, and addictive drugs. But it's the oxygen that helps you relax, because cigarettes are a stimulant. It's the oxygen, because people go, I need to smoke, I need to relax. But it's the oxygen.
So if they smoked a straw, that would work.
You never know. If they took a breath.
If they took the breath through the straw, somebody try that and let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, so 3 of your favorite local places. It could be more into Youngstown, anywhere between Cleveland and Pittsburgh. Because I know you're in Salem. I know you know Youngstown, the Harley store. You're there sometimes, Salineville. So it just places. It could be the places to eat. It could be great organizations. Just 3 of your suggestions for people to check out and try.
Geez, that's.
I know, and I'm totally taking you off guard.
I know. Well, again, I think Youngstown Harley Davidson, because they have a really nice environment there, and they all have all kinds of events. They actually have Rally 36 coming up, and it's all free too, And
that's the thing. A lot of times people think, well, I'm not a Harley person, but it's not just for Harley people.
No,
it's for the community. They throw these events for the communities. Yeah,
they have all kinds of stuff, and they have a lot of resources there too. So that's one place. I would say Charm House. I really like her.
Oh, here.
Brittany, she was here. And,
okay.
And she
she's
moved.
a board man.
Yeah, but she is such a giving person. And
okay, that's a decor shop.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and
very unique stuff. I went in there and I wanted everything. She had squirrels. She had her husband makes some of the tables, and then she it's beautiful. If you have not, so it used to. She started in downtown Salem. Now she's in Boardman, across the street from the Boardman. The shop's at the Boardman Park, right next to Papa Gigi's Italian Village. So definitely check her out.
And I would say the Breathing Tree acupuncturists.
Oh, where's that at?
They are next level. I mean, they have a place at Firestone Farms in
Columbiana.
right in there,
okay.
in Columbiana, in the square there, right behind Homestead.
Okay.
And the husband and wife, they're the most amazing, talented, gifted people. They know so much knowledge, and when you get off that table, you swear you had a massage. That's how great you feel.
Oh wow,
it's amazing. And they also have a new location in Boardman. So, but the Breathing Tree, they're on Facebook, Instagram, website.
Okay,
they're wonderful people. Aaron and Gayla Stiles.
Okay. Well,
so
thank you.
Those 3 things, I guess.
There we go.
Not that I don't love all the restaurants here and everything.
Right. No, but yeah, that's 3 non-restaurants, really. Yeah. Well, thank you, Madison.
Thank
you for the conversation. Thank you for meeting with me.
And you have to come again.
Yeah.
For a massage.
When you get an opening.
3 years.
I know. Can you believe that?
It's too long.
Yeah,
You've been doing so much.
It is so long. Oh, man. I'm just going to lay up here. No, I'm kidding.
Serious. You have so much joy, though.
Oh, thank you.
You do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's means a lot.
Because
and maybe we'll talk about this sometime, but there was a period of my life that I did not think that I would genuinely laugh or smile again. And it bothered me so much. I would take pictures and I would try to force it. it was just not coming from the inside. So anytime somebody says that, I feel such gratitude because I remember thinking, will I ever laugh again, genuinely? So very humbling, and I very much appreciate it. So thank you again.
Thank you.
And guys, always remember,
Thank you.
you are amazing. You are special just for being. Everything that you do matters. Every word that you say, every smile you give matters. And you are the best part of what makes Youngstown click. I am so thankful for you guys. And until next time, don't ever forget how important you are.
Absolutely.
From me and Madison.
Be gentle with yourself.
Be gentle with yourself.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Talk
Thank
to you
you.
later.